In a magical world, some children were running happily, shouting that the Wicked Witch of the West had died. Soon, the entire village heard the news and celebrated the event, as the witch was everyone's enemy. Shortly afterward, a girl named Glinda appeared, singing inside a bubble. When she landed on the ground, she confirmed the death of the Wicked Witch of the West, which meant the end of evil. Then a child asked why evil existed. Glinda replied with another question, leaving it uncertain whether people were born evil or if evil was thrust upon them, as the Wicked Witch had a father, the governor of Munchkinland, and a mother. However, when her father left for his meetings, her mother betrayed him with another man. On that particular day, she drank a green elixir. Months later, she gave birth, but something surprised everyone. The baby was green. Additionally, the child had powers, but her parents did not want to raise her. Therefore, the nanny Dulcie Bear cared for the baby, who was named Elphaba. However, Elphaba did not have an easy childhood. Years later, Dulcie Bear was called away by her employer, leaving Elphaba responsible for taking care of her sister Neceros, who was unable to walk. Elphaba opened a book and told Neceros the story of the Wizard of Oz, a person who could grant any wish. However, some children appeared and began mocking Elphaba's appearance. This behavior upset both sisters, prompting Elphaba to lash out at the children who called her a witch. When her father appeared, he scolded her, blaming her for making Neceros cry, though Dulce Bear knew she was not to blame. Glinda understood that Elphaba had not had an easy childhood. The village celebration continued, and they even burned a statue representing the Wicked Witch. At one point, a woman asked Glinda if she had been friends with the Wicked Witch, and she replied that she had. Years ago, Glinda went to study at Shiz University in the land of Oz, where she was very popular among the people. On the other hand, there was someone who was looked down upon by everyone. Elphaba explained that she had always been green, and Glinda offered to help her solve this problem when she became a sorceress, earning applause from everyone. However, Elphaba realized that Glinda just wanted attention. Elphaba was not actually a student. She had come only to care for her sister Neceros, at the request of their father Frex. During the opening ceremony in the courtyard, the prestigious headmistress, Madame Morrible, was introduced. After the presentation, Glinda approached her to discuss her enrollment in the sorcery seminar, but Madame Morrible said she only taught the most talented students. Meanwhile, the headmistress Coddle treated Neceros very kindly, but was startled when she saw Elphaba and relieved to learn that she wasn't enrolled. Coddle insisted on escorting Neceros to her dormitory, but since Elphaba had promised to look after her sister, she did everything she could to retrieve Neceros, causing damage to the university courtyard. People were horrified, and Neceros was upset because her fresh start had been ruined. Madame Morrible appeared and claimed she had orchestrated the incident so that students could learn to expect the unexpected at Shiz University. She then approached Elphaba and offered her a room. When Glinda came over to speak again, she was unexpectedly chosen as Elphaba's roommate. Madame Morrible expressed interest in mentoring Elphaba. Although Elphaba admitted she couldn't control her powers, Madame Morrible assured her that the Wizard of Oz was seeking someone with her talent and promised to recommend her. This led to Elphaba being officially enrolled at the university, and she was thrilled at the prospect of being recognized by the wizard. Later, she arrived at her room, where Glinda was already settled. Unhappy with her roommate, Glinda left only a small space for Elphaba in their shared room, doing everything she could to hide her from the other students. Glinda knew it was Elphaba who had used magic in the courtyard and insisted that she teach her, which made Elphaba angry, accidentally causing the door's glass to shatter. That night, both of them wrote letters to their parents, expressing dissatisfaction with their living arrangement. They spent most of their time arguing and teasing each other. While Glinda became increasingly popular, Elphaba continued to be shunned. The only person who showed any warmth toward her was Madame Morrible. In history class, Professor Dilliman, who was a goat, was questioned for being unable to pronounce Glinda's name correctly, so Elphaba defended him by saying that not everyone was the same, but she ended up being mocked by the others. Dilliman explained that in the past, animals were more respected, but hunger and anger during the drought changed everything. When he went to use the chalkboard, a message had been written that animals should be seen and not heard, which left everyone shocked. Dilliman was so outraged that he ended the class immediately. He was the first friend of Elphaba. In another moment, Elphaba was trying to levitate a coin, but became frustrated for not being able to. When asking about the incident in history class, Elphaba became irritated with people's disrespect. Only then she managed to levitate the coin, leaving Madame Morrible impressed with her power. Now she needed to learn to tame her emotions. Later, Elphaba went after Professor Dilliman to find out if he discovered who had done that in class, but realized he was in a meeting with other animals. They talked about disappearance and job losses of some animals recently. This was because the animals were losing the ability to speak, making them leave Oz. At that moment, Elphaba felt something similar to a premonition and made a noise. Thus, she was discovered by Dilliman, who asked her to join him. Elphaba said they urgently needed the wizard's help, and it was then that Dilliman began to lose the ability to speak. On the way back, Elphaba was almost run over by a man on horseback. The man apologized and didn't treat her badly like everyone else, but the young woman wasn't very friendly and quickly walked away. Elphaba had no idea that the man was Prince Fiyero from the Land of Winks, and that he would be joining the students of Shiz University. Glinda dressed up to leave a good impression, and everyone was enchanted by the prince. Glinda approached Fiyero and offered to be his guide to help him get to know the university, and so they went off together. In the library, he saw Elphaba and greeted her, but she didn't pay attention. He then suggested doing some forbidden things at the university, which was the reason he hadn't lasted long at others. Nessarose was enjoying the show, unlike her sister. After the fun, Bach offered a handkerchief to Glinda and invited her to dance, but she pointed to Nessarose and said that if someone made her happy, they would be her hero. So Bach offered to be Nessarose's dance partner. In this way, Glinda got rid of him and took the opportunity to invite Fiyero to dance later that night. Nessarose was very happy and quickly went to tell Elphaba about the invitation, thanking Glinda for helping her. Elphaba questioned the help, but her sister defended Glinda. When Elphaba entered the room, her roommate invited her to go to the Ozdust ballroom and suggested she wear a hat that their friends had just mocked. In the ballroom, everyone was dancing happily, with several animals playing music. When Bach looked at Glinda and saw her kissing Fiyero, he took the initiative and asked Nessarose to dance. Shortly afterward, Madame Morrible approached Glinda and handed her a training wand, but made it clear that it was a request from Elphaba. With this, she would also join the sorcery seminar, though the reason remained a mystery. Then Elphaba appeared at the ball wearing the hat she had received from Glinda. Everyone laughed and mocked her. After she placed the hat on the floor, an absolute silence fell over the room. Elphaba began making some movements. For the first time, Glinda felt bad for her and started mimicking her movements, leaving her friends confused. Then the two danced together. Elphaba was so moved that she cried. Afterward, everyone put aside their differences and also danced. After the ball, the roommates grew closer, and Glinda wanted to know why Elphaba slept with an empty bottle under her pillow, but she became furious and simply said it was her mother's. Seeing that her roommate was upset, Elphaba decided to share that her father hated her. This was because when her mother was pregnant with Nessarose, Frex was afraid she would be born green and made his wife eat calla lilies every day. As a result, Nessarose was born very early and unable to walk. Furthermore, their mother never woke up. Elphaba felt guilty, but Glinda said she was wrong. Thus, the two became friends. Glinda was determined to make her popular and offered her accessories for Elphaba to wear. She tried to use the wand to transform Elphaba's outfit into a ball gown, but she couldn't do it. The next day, the students began greeting Elphaba, who was trying to do the same things as Glinda. Fiyero noticed and said she didn't need to do that. In history class, Dilliman barely managed to announce that animals were no longer allowed to teach, and soldiers arrived to forcibly remove him from the university. Before the students could react, Coddle ordered Elphaba to sit down. Then the new history professor appeared with a caged animal, as this would be the way from then on. At that moment, Elphaba remembered the vision she had. When she slammed the bouquet of flowers on the table, everyone instantly fell asleep, except for Elphaba and Fiyero, who rescued the animal and told her they should leave the university using 2 bicycles. Madame Morrible arrived in the room and noticed what had happened. Upon reaching the forest, Elphaba asked for Fiero's help. While helping him clean a wound, they felt something different for each other. Afterward, he took the animal to a safe place, and she returned to the university. The next day, Madame Morrible called Elphaba at the entrance of the university, saying she had received a response from the wizard. When Elphaba took the letter, it was an invitation calling her to the royal palace of the Wizard of Oz in the Emerald City. Sometime later, a train bound for the Emerald City arrived. Elphaba was ready to leave and said goodbye to Glinda. Fiyero appeared and said goodbye as well. Jealous, Glinda said she also often thought about the day Dilliman was expelled, and in his honor, she would change her name. Her real name was Galinda, and from that moment, she began calling herself Glinda, earning applause from everyone. Nessarose noticed that Bach liked someone else and left upset. Fiyero gave a flower to Elphaba and left shortly after. He was changing, which caused Glinda to lose romantic interest in him. Elphaba then boarded the train and said goodbye to everyone. However, she invited her friend to go with her, and so the two went together. It didn't take long for them to reach the city, and they were warmly welcomed. In the Emerald City, everyone wore green clothes, and it was a very lively place. Elphaba and Glinda went to the palace and handed the letter to the guard, gaining entrance. They were guided down a hallway full of grumpy monkeys until they finally arrived at the wizard's chamber. After introducing themselves, he appeared to greet them. Then the wizard showed a model of the Land of Oz, and even made a doll identical to Elphaba. She said she needed the wizard's help to assist the animals, and he replied that he had been expecting this. Madame Morrible was also at the palace to witness the moment, but she wasn't very pleased to see Glinda. They stood before the Grimoire, the ancient book of wisdom, dalmatology, and enchantments. Not just anyone could cast a spell using the Grimoire, but Elphaba insisted on trying. As the book opened on its own, the wizard mentioned that the leader of the palace guards had a dream of flying. Madame Morrible said that even she could barely understand a few words of the book. However, Elphaba began reading it with ease. Suddenly, wings emerged from the book, and the monkey began writhing. In a short time, wings grew on his back, and he briefly flew. Everyone was amazed, but the monkey was suffering, and Elphaba wanted to undo the spell. However, she was told it wasn't possible. She heard noises and went to check on the other monkeys, discovering that all of them were growing wings. Then Madame Morrible and the wizard revealed that their plan had worked. The monkeys would make excellent spies, reporting any animal protest activity. Elphaba became outraged and realized that the two were behind the rebellion against the animals. Their goal was to eliminate discord among people by creating a common enemy, blaming the animals for all the bad things happening. Elphaba took the book and demanded the wizard undo the spell, but he admitted he had no real power and couldn't. Elphaba ran off, and Madame Morrible ordered Glinda to go after her. She also commanded the monkeys to capture Elphaba. Glinda tried to call her back, but it was no use. Human guards were also ordered to capture Elphaba, who was becoming increasingly cornered. Her only option was to climb into the balloon with Glinda and escape through the roof of the royal palace. The guards tried to stop them, but they knocked them down one by one. When they were about to escape, the exit began to close, and the balloon was damaged. They had to leave the balloon and flee elsewhere. Then they locked the door. Despite everything, Glinda still tried to convince her to return, but Elphaba didn't trust them. At that moment, Madame Morrible announced to the entire city that Elphaba was a fugitive, accused of stealing the Grimoire and causing suffering to the monkeys. She also added that her green skin was a manifestation of wickedness. From then on, she became known as the Wicked Witch. After hearing this, Glinda stood by her side. The two climbed the palace stairs, and Elphaba took the Grimoire to cast another spell, hoping to create wings, but her plan didn't work. Down below, a broomstick began moving, floating until it ended up in Elphaba's possession. Meanwhile, the guards were closing in. Elphaba asked Glinda to flee with her, but her friend refused. Instead, Glinda grabbed a cloak and placed it on Elphaba, her eyes filled with tears. As the guards entered, they both ran in opposite directions. Glinda was captured while Elphaba ran the other way. Then she jumped out the window, even though she didn't know how to fly. During the fall, she looked at her reflection in the mirrors and remembered everything she had been through. At that moment, she managed to control the broomstick and gain the ability to fly. She caught the monkeys' attention and made them collide with the guards, seeing her friend for the last time. Then she fled the Emerald City. The news of the Grimoire's theft and her supposed wickedness quickly spread across Oz, further increasing her family's disdain. The power of her outrage caused great damage to the city, but at least Glinda was safe. And so ends part 1 of the movie Wicked.